Perfect. Thank you everyone for joining. And as Shelby mentioned, this is Jacob's first employer preview as part of the Hiring Our Heroes program. Thankfully, both myself and Shelby have some background with the program, so it's not our first overall, just the first for Jacobs, and we're excited to have everyone. I see lots of individuals joining on camera, including Bill Crowder. So let me start with some introductions. I'll introduce everyone, and then I'm going to hand it over to Shelby. You will hear from all three of us throughout the day today. So again, welcome. My name is Jason Boone. I lead Central Talent Sourcing at Jacobs. And what that fundamentally means is my job is to work with individuals that are interested in joining the organization and help them find their place across Jacobs as an organization, which is a big organization. We're going to talk, that is a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is who we are, what we do, where we're located, and then we're going to share all of the information about the program. Just so you know my background as well. I did grow up military, multi-generational military family. I served in the Army Reserves, right out of high school. I enlisted before my senior year. I was an 88 Mike, and I always say it's the best thing it got me was some great training, and I can drive my fifth wheel with the best of them after that 88 Mike training. I then have spent my entire career in talent acquisition, so working specifically in recruiting, and I have almost all of that time focused on military recruiting. And then my recent career has been focused on building military recruiting programs. So prior to joining Jacobs, I worked for Lockheed Martin and SAIC before that. So a couple companies many of you may have heard of as well. And I have been absolutely enjoying my time at Jacobs as they are so passionate about growing our military presence. And when I talk about the military community, and we talk about it today, that is transitioning military, all of you, military spouses, which many of you likely have, and the traditional veterans. So that's my background. To let you know the others on the call, and you'll hear from them in a little bit as well. So Bill Crowder is a lead talent advisor. So he runs a lot of our recruiting programs for Space Force, as well as several other pieces of our business. He sits down in Tampa, so you'll see him if anybody's at MacDill Air Force Base. He presents at a lot of the presentations down there at the Friday huddles. He has been a great part of the organization for several years, has a long recruiting background before Jacobs as well, so he recruited other areas, and is also very involved in some of the veteran mentoring programs like Key, which is an organization that partners companies and veterans towards their training. And so he's going to talk about VetNet as well at the end of the presentation, as well as be here for questions. And then finally, Shelby Alavecchios is the newest member of our team. She is currently in Arizona and a proud military spouse to Captain Promotable Alavecchios. So that's our exciting, more recent news in their family is her husband's upcoming promotion. She has been a tremendous advocate for the military spouse and the military community as a whole, coming from an area in her career in a lot of education and alignment between the military community and employers. So with all of us, you get a lot of experience in representation of that full military community and how we can work together. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Shelby for the start of our presentations, and I'll cover the admissions to the room as well.
All right, that sounds great, Jason. Hi, welcome everybody. Again, I'm Shelby. I have proudly been serving at Jacobs for the last month now. And for a company that's as diverse and global and large as Jacobs is, there's really no simple answer for me to tell you who we are. But I think that Jason sums it up really nicely when he says, we're the biggest full service engineering company that you may have never heard of. Jacobs leads the global professional services sector, providing solutions for a more connected, sustainable world. In a nutshell, we do this by challenging today to reinvent tomorrow, which is our slogan. We are a diverse people working as a collective. And I think that it's this diversity, and this includes the whole military community, that drives our ability to really be able to enact change by leading in innovation with our unique perspectives and by collaboration. And of course, the outcome of that innovation is we are able to reinvent tomorrow and have a meaningful and positive impact on the world. I certainly couldn't talk about Jacobs without touching on our tenets, our values, And these really spoke to me when I was being recruited to come here at Jacobs. First is we do things right. This is the personal accountability piece that I know is ingrained within our military community. And I'm proud that our military community is able to bring that to Jacobs. Next, we aim higher. We're those overachievers. We go above and beyond. We don't settle. The next two really resonate with me in my role. It's we challenge the accepted. We're curious. We ask the difficult questions, and we're not afraid to try new things. And then lastly, we live inclusion. When I was being recruited to come onto this team, there was never a point where I felt like I couldn't live out the mission, the vision, and values of this company as a military spouse. And I'll tell you that that's not been my experience with many other companies. So it's part of why I'm really passionate about being part of this military connected team. We really do live inclusion, and the perspectives from military affiliation are valued. Next, we are going to go ahead and talk, well, I'm going to show you Jacobs' capabilities instead of chatting about it. So hopefully everybody can hear this when I play it. These are Jacobs' capabilities. All right, Jason, you want to take it away and talk a little bit about our lines of business?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Shelby. And hopefully everybody sees something that they connect with their background and the mission that they've been supporting for years, and so they can bring that to Jacobs. So a little bit more about us, and some of this is by the numbers, the focus areas. We're really going to drive into these when we talk about the business areas. So on the numbers, and I completely steal that phrase of one of the largest companies you've never heard of from our CEO. My second week in the company, I read an interview he had done for a Dallas newspaper when he talked about that, but he also said, and we're changing that. And Jacobs is a company that has often built and engineered and designed things for other organizations. And so you see their name, and that could be anywhere from NASA to water plants and water companies around the world. But we're changing that. So we're going to make sure people know who Jacobs is and what we do to make our world a better place, and to do that, exactly that reinventing tomorrow. So when we talk about that size, you can see there's 55,000 employees, and that's actively growing. So that number, of course, is going up all the time. Operating in 40 countries around the world. So truly opportunities wherever you want to be around the world. 400 offices. So later, Shelby's going to talk a little bit about where some of our major operations are that align with SkillBridge. But know that as you want to take your career to different places, it's likely that Jacobs has those opportunities in those locations. We are very focused on a very sustainable environment. That is a big part of what we do. In one of our businesses, even specifically focused on the environment. One of the pieces I want to talk about there on the revenue and the backlog. So obviously a very large organization. We're right in the heart of earnings season. $14 billion in revenue gives us a very strong, stable place for you to bring your career and keep your career long term. And you may not be familiar with backlog. It's a term that just a few years ago I was not familiar with. I was at a different organization. They kept talking about backlog, and I'm like, what is this backlog? And it's kind of what it sounds like. So this is business that we have sold. We have been awarded this work. We are going to deliver this work. We just haven't delivered it yet. So most importantly, we haven't collected the revenue. We haven't charged our customer for that. And what that, you can look at that and see that number, that $22 billion in backlog. That means we have almost 2 years of what would be our current revenue that we've been awarded, and we haven't even billed the customer or delivered for that customer yet. It's future business. So knowing that we have long-term sustainable opportunities is what gives me a lot of that confidence, knowing that I can bring individuals onto Jacobs and they can grow their career here for the long term. So if you want to go to the next slide, Shelby. So we have two major parts of our business, and the first of those is critical mission solutions. And I start with this because this is the area that many of you are going to connect with the most. So we refer to this as CMS, and CMS is a lot of the work we do that supports the federal government and federal governments from around the world. So a lot of our defense-focused work is in CMS. Many of the positions, not all, but many of the positions in CMS are cleared positions. And I'm not one to read slides. We'll have a lot of this information out for Hiring Our Heroes, but know that this is the work that is very much focused on making our world a safer, better place, and ensuring that the men and women in uniform are able to carry out their mission as safely and securely as possible. So let's talk a little bit about what CMS looks like on the next slide. So looking at some of our customers and the work that we do, we break CMS into 4 major areas. So the first one, we call it Aero, but not to be confused with only, aircraft or aeronautics. Engineering, research, and operations make up Aero. A big piece of this is the NASA work. We are NASA's largest service provider. We run a significant amount of the operations at the Johnson Space Center. That's one of our major locations. So a lot of work supporting NASA. And when we bring individuals to space, when we bring the first woman to the moon in 2024, Jacobs is going to be part of that mission. That Aero division also encompasses many of the rest of the work we do, including the work we do in Space Force, which is really exciting work and a lot of opportunities out in Colorado, where we've had the most success with Hiring Our Heroes fellows. And then advancing national security is very much core of exactly what it sounds like. So some of the big projects there is with U.S. Transcom, U.S. Central Command, and Special Operations Forces Command. So if you have interest in working in places like Scott Air Force Base in Tampa, in the Panhandle of Florida, at Fort Bragg, a lot of that work is going to be advancing national security work for you. Cyber and intel is exactly what it sounds. It can't be any more descriptive. A lot of work throughout those areas where we have major military operations, and Shelby's going to talk about those locations. But not only is it existing cyber professionals, but individuals who want to transition and grow their career in cyber. What we know is our military professionals, they are defense and security minded. Even if your career hasn't been specifically in cyber, maybe you're an intel professional and you want to transition. We know that you have a mindset of protecting our country, and we can ramp up your skills in those areas faster than when we could somebody that doesn't have the same mindset that our transitioning military has. And then finally, this is our newest sector, is energy, security, and technology. We brought 2 pieces of our business together into this area, and they really perform a variety of solutions around the world, as well as all of the work we do with nuclear technology. So whether that be from power plants to submarines, and then a lot of our international work. And you'll see our customers, a lot of them listed, major military operations and organizations. DARPA is some of that very fun work. And then internationally, the Ministry of Defense, both in the UK and Australia. We also do significant defense work in India as well. And then even some commercial companies fall within this space. So let's jump and talk about the rest of our business. And in the next piece, PMPS, or People and Places Solutions, actually is the larger part of our organization. But again, in a big company, a lot of opportunity. So this is kind of the most fun. If I think about what are some cool things that engineers do, this is often where PMPS, where you can see their work. This is the buildings, the bridges, the manufacturing facilities, the water treatment plants, the coastal protection, environmental work, the things that you can see and touch so often and affect the civilian world so significantly. That is also what PMPS, or People and Places Solutions, is focused on. So let's jump to the next slide and talk a little bit more specifics about what they do, so you can find that area that relates to you. So advanced facilities, the easiest way I can describe the work that we do with some of advanced facilities work is we think about how fast the manufacturing industry and the pharmaceutical space had to ramp up for COVID vaccine production. We were integral in partnering with those pharmaceutical companies to retool and improve the efficiency at their plants to make sure that they can get that vaccine out as quickly as possible. The same thing that we are doing in the semiconductor space currently. You've probably heard, whether it be you couldn't get a truck that you wanted or anything else in the chip space, there's a chip shortage, and we're working with chip manufacturers to develop and enhance their facilities so that they can get those chips around and we can buy another F-150 rather than those sitting in a parking lot in Tennessee. So then in the federal environmental solutions, building buildings for the federal government, and not only our federal government, but governments around the world, the Middle East, Australia. We're recently very involved in the World Expo in Dubai, and a lot of that also works directly with our what we call building and infrastructure. So you'll see B&I, Asia Pacific, the Middle East, Africa, and America. So that's building and infrastructure in those areas. So all of those individuals that are in the Corps of Engineers, or if we have some CBs out there, a lot of the work that you're going to be looking to do is going to be in that B&I within different areas of our globe. And wherever you want to be, we generally have an opportunity for you in one of those spaces. And you can see it breaks down in a lot of different segments: digital, environmental, transportation, water. So all those areas that impact the quality of life around the world. So with all of those, I'm going to hand that over to Shelby as she's going to start talking a little bit more about fellowship and how you can join Jacobs.
I got the fun part. I get to talk about the nitty-gritty of the Jacobs Fellowship Program historically, and then how we see it in the future. So we're able to provide fellowship opportunities for all branches of the U.S. military. And we're doing this based on what we call these military skill focuses. So you can see all these skill focuses here on the right-hand side of the slide. Those are areas that align with Jacobs' needs. These are skills that you have coming out of service that we have then aligned with the needs of Jacobs. So when applying for our fellowship program, and Jason's going to talk about that whole process and provide you with some transparency in just a little bit, we're going to ask you, which of these skills do you demonstrate? We're going to ask you about your location preferences, and we're going to use that information along with your availability dates to be able to align you within the Jacobs ecosystem to get you in front of the right hiring managers and the right recruiters to find you a placement that is both impactful for Jacobs, but meaningful to you. So look forward to seeing that. If you submit a form telling us you're interested. And again, Jason is going to touch on that in just a minute. All right, so let's talk location, because I know, especially when you're ending your time in service, you're done jumping around, this is important. This is important to us in the military community. So prior to this year, we had advocates within Jacobs that were advocating on behalf of the military community across the organization and helping with fellowship, but we didn't really have a centralized program. Fast forward to this year, where now we do have a program. So where we've been and what you can see on the map is historical. So we've been doing the good work there, and our military hiring initiatives are working there. But moving forward, now that we have a team, a central talent team, a military team, we get to expand this on a national level and beyond. So we're going to talk a little bit about each of these locations that are represented. But I want you to know, if I talk about a certain skill type that's being asked for at that particular location, this isn't a representation of all of the types of opportunities and roles that you'll find. Jacobs is big, and I'm finding this as a sourcer, it's big. There's a little bit of everything for everyone, everywhere. All right, so we're gonna start with Dallas. You can, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you can see it's got this little building on the map, and that's because that's our corporate headquarters. And so we really see a great opportunity to be able to expand our fellowship programs in that area. Next, we have the National Capital Region. This is all the surrounding areas of Arlington. They have lots of opportunities for cyber and intelligence, but remember, there's lots of opportunities for everyone everywhere. So although we have cyber and intel there, you may also see it in Seattle, Tacoma, and certainly other places throughout the United States. Moving down further, what we're calling the Central Colorado Corridor encompasses both Schriever Air Force Base as well as Fort Carson. This is where a lot of our fellowship candidates have come from historically. I was speaking with the regional program manager from Hiring Our Heroes last week, and she let me know that we have a great track record here of Jacobs of converting fellowships to offers and then hires, especially within that region. In fact, we have almost a perfect track record of making sure that you find full-time employment post-fellowship in that location. We had one off where someone got sick and wasn't able to take their offer, but other than that, perfect track record. So we're looking forward to continuing to work and expand that program. Scott Air Force Base, St. Louis and Chicago in Illinois. Jason has been doing a lot of really great work in this area. And so we're excited to build upon the foundation that he's laid in that region and continue to build the fellowship program. In the Seattle, Tacoma area, you're going to find a lot of opportunities in what we call the built environment, as well as IT. Southern Arizona, this is big. This is going to encompass a couple major installations and group them together. So Southern Arizona, we're talking Luke Air Force Base, Huachuca, as well as Davis-Monthan. Because we have DoD contracts in the Sierra Vista area, a lot of those opportunities would be in support of those contracts. Definitely check out the Southern Arizona region if you're interested in coming to sunny Arizona where I reside. And then we have Florida. So many opportunities within Florida. We work in 3 pretty distinct regions: Tampa, Panhandle, and Space Coast. Here you're going to see work in environmental. You're going to see aerospace and so much more. So again, know that from these locations, we're branching out across the entire nation. And now we're going to go back to Jason, and he is going to talk about our fellowship process 2022 and beyond.
Perfect. Thanks, Shelby. And I'm really excited about this because it is really a brand new process for Jacobs, but it's not necessarily a brand new process. So as I mentioned earlier, and I'm not shy to talk about it, I spent the previous 3 years at Lockheed Martin. And one of the things I had the opportunity to do there was to try and test and play and build some new things. And we're taking the process that I built at Lockheed Martin and brought to Jacobs, and then refining the things that we know are going to work better for you as well as better for Jacobs. So I want to talk about this process. And this is the piece that is going to be exactly how we answer your questions that a lot of them have been in the chat, and how you come on as a fellow to Jacobs, and even if not a fellow, for long-term after that. So to start with, we're going to receive all of the candidate information. So everyone who's approved from Hiring Our Heroes, we're going to receive all of your information from Hiring Our Heroes. They're going to send us a spreadsheet. They're going to give us access to that data. So that's where it starts. And they're going to tell us some things about you, but not everything that we need to know, because we know different things than other companies. And what's going to happen next is you're going to receive an email from Shelby or I but it's going to be from Jacobs, that is going to ask you to tell us a little bit more about you. This is so critically important. The key piece is, I don't know you're interested in Jacobs if you don't complete that form. It's a very brief, very simple form. It's done online. It is completely personal to you. And there's some things that's important. The most common question I've seen on the right-hand side in the chat is about locations. We're going to ask you, where do you want to be? And a lot of that where you want to be is, where do you want to be now for your fellowship, or where do you want to be in the future when you transition in the military? Because they may be different. And what I know from my time working with transitioning veterans, the military doesn't necessarily leave you where you want to be forever. So we want to make sure we understand that. We also want to understand your skills as they align to Jacobs. So what I mean by that is, we're going to ask you to select up to 3 skills from a drop-down list. And we have 12 different skills in that drop-down list. And what we know is, we know the areas that we hire at Jacobs and individuals come out of the military with those skills. I always use one example, rather than covering all 12 of them, is that we don't work within the medical field. It's just not our space. And if you're coming out of the medical corps, there is a tremendous number of opportunities, and everybody knows there's a shortage of medical professionals. That's just not our space. So the areas that you're going to see on that drop down is the areas that we hire at Jacobs, and we know you have coming out of the military. So it's an alignment. We're also going to talk to you about your rank, your grade, when you're available. And then here's my favorite piece. We're going to ask you to sell yourself, to write a 1 to 3 sentence pitch of yourself about what you do, the skills you have, and we're talking about hard skills. So I'm going to ask everybody. Nobody put an innovative person. Nobody put a dedicated, hardworking. I know you're all those things. I want you to talk about the hard skills you have, the certifications you have, and what you want to do in your career. Here's where this is so important. We're going to take all the information you provide in that form. We're going to pull it together. We're going to segment it by skill and location. So this is all what happens on the backside. And then we're going to push you out by skill, by location, to managers who said, I want to look at fellows that have engineering or have logistics or have cyber and are in this location. So we're putting the right fellow by your skills in front of the right manager at the right time for you. So that's why these pieces are so valuable. And right in the center of that email, when we push that out, and it's going to be a small list by skill, is we're going to put your sell of yourself in front of those managers. So we tell you it's an opportunity, proofread what you wrote, give us a couple good sentences because it's going right as you write it in front of the hiring managers. And it's your opportunity to catch their attention, let them know what you can do, so that we can get you moving forward. So that's a lot in step 1, but I want you to know how important it is. We gather that, we hold it in our record for you. Now we're going to align you with the recruiters and the hiring managers that are in the right location for you. That's where this matching happens. So we can make sure we find the right role. The recruiters and the hiring managers are going to reach out directly to you. So you won't hear back from Shelby and I about your interview, but it'll be somebody like Bill that's going to reach out and say, hey, I've got an opportunity for you at Space Force outside Colorado Springs. And they're going to talk to you about that fellowship. They're going to reach out directly. They're going to set up the interview. They're going to make an offer. They're going to pass that information back to Shelby and I so we can coordinate with Hiring Our Heroes. You're going to get a set of offers. I am confident every one of you is going to have a couple of offers. Then you're going to work your fellowship. We're going to make sure it's successful. And what's really important is during your fellowship timeframe, usually at about the 3-week mark, we're saying, all right, let's talk about full-time opportunities. Let's make sure that the manager is opening a position. You're applying to a full-time position with the organization. We're getting you hired, onboarded, all of our screenings done so that when you convert and you're ready to transition at the end of the fellowship timeframe, we're able to bring you on to Jacobs. And what I'll let you know is for everybody who may not come to Jacobs directly, we're going to take all that information. We're going to follow up at the end of the fellowship timeframe and say, hey, if your host company wasn't able to hire you, let's talk again. And let's talk directly about full-time opportunities. So it's a full cycle of all of those processes. And on that, if we can go to the next slide, Shelby, so I can kind of talk about what that looks like beyond just the fellowship. So this is all of the information you share with us. It creates a record, just a Jacobs record, that is just used with our talent acquisition team to understand you long-term, so that we can also then provide you resources that are custom for you. One of the favorite things I was able to build through my career is understanding that your timeline is unique. You're transitioning at a different time than somebody else. And I don't want to tell you to go to our career site and apply to jobs 9 months before you separate. That's not effective. But I do want to make sure you have the right resources to tailor your resume, to be ready for an interview at Jacobs, to apply to our career site at the right time. So that's that career advice. And where I tell you it's going to be personalized to you is about skills and about timelines. We're also going to make sure you're connecting with us. If you didn't see our LinkedIn profiles in the chat, look for those. We're going to share them at the end. We want you to connect with us because we're posting positions on LinkedIn all the time where we're hiring. We want to make sure we can connect you to the right recruiters about what's there. And we're going to make sure you know what to expect, because I can't guarantee you a job, but I can give you an expectation of how we're going to partner together, because it's a partnership. We're going to provide you resources. We're going to expedite your application. We're going to make sure our hiring managers know here's this transitioning military member with this clearance and this skill set that wants to go to this location and get you in front of the right people. The last thing I'm going to mention before I hand it over to Bill is I'm pretty excited that as soon as this call's over, I should have final approval, but I'll give you the sneak preview. We believe that we just are going to get approval to bring a fellow onto our team, working with Shelby and myself. So it's an opportunity for you to come on, work directly in talent acquisition, work directly with military programs, and directly impact the next cohort. Work with military spouse fellowships, work with direct CSP fellowships, learn recruiting, learn applicant tracking systems, candidate relationship management, all the things that are recruiting. It's my favorite thing to do is teach talent acquisition to new people. I've been doing it for a long time and love passing that on. Ideally, at the end of the fellowship, you're going to be able to look at opportunities across Jacobs. All of our teams, all of the lines of business that we talked about with CMS and PMPS, they're all hiring recruiters regularly. Last I heard, Bill had a position on his team for a recruiter not that long ago. You might be coming into a fellowship and then going to work for Bill 12 weeks later as a recruiter at Jacobs. So look for that as one of those opportunities. And want to let you know is if you're interested in that, when you fill out that form that we talked about and you're going to get in your email, one of the skill areas is called business operations. And those are the individuals that we're going to look for because that's recruiting and talent acquisition. So that's a sneak peek. And I'm going to hand it to Bill to talk to you about VetNet and how we engage veterans long term.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Bill. I'm waiting for that next slide to pop up, but while we're waiting for that, I'll give you a quick intro. I am not a veteran. I was trying to make sure I put that way up front. My military experience started when I was 17. I went to the Air Force recruiter and I said, "Hey, Mr. Air Force recruiter, man, I want to fly." And he took one look at me and he said, "Bill, you ain't never going to fly." And I said, "Okay, thank you very much for your time." And I walked straight out the door. Since then, I've recruited pilots out of the military for a couple years. And then I turned around and I started recruiting specifically for the DoD around about 6 years ago. This entire time, I've had a huge focus on hiring veterans. When I first came over here to Jacobs, I was supporting the special operations community worldwide, and I asked a real hard question. I said, "Hey, why don't we have a veteran hiring program?" And they're like, "I don't know, Bill, you start it." And so I took everything around me. I said, "Okay, let's do this." Since then, I've kind of jumped through the VetNet ranks. I'm currently the global recruitment chair, which Jason doesn't know this yet, but he's going to be taking that spot here in the very near future. I'm the VetNet talent acquisition liaison. I'm also the Tampa chapter lead here for the Veterans Network. What we do is, you can read what's on the slide, but what we really do is we provide a community for transitioning veterans to go to, not only for support in various ways, but as you transition out of the military, there's going to be questions that you're not going to feel comfortable asking your immediate supervisor or the team around you, just because this is your first time going through this, and you don't want to sound ignorant to your team. Believe me, that's absolutely fine. You're going to have questions like that, and the VetNet community is a great place for that. All those guys have made that exact same transition before you, and they can make life pretty easy. Through VetNet, we've partnered with a couple extra people. I see Larry Everly down there in the chat. He's one of my guys on the VetNet talent acquisition team, also a veteran. He is fantastic at what he does. Really good guy down there. Anyways, back to some of the people that we've partnered with. We've made a couple different partnerships. Hiring Our Heroes has been one of them, SkillBridge. We've also partnered with a company called the Gratitude Professor Foundation. That's where we honor our veterans just by giving them a medal. There's a plaque, and then we take a bunch of feel-good pictures as well. And that's just something to go a little bit above and beyond to say thank you for your service. We've recently applied to a ton of different awards in the veteran space. When I came over here, I saw that Jacobs really, we qualified for a ton of awards. We had just never applied for any of them before. So I shot for probably the biggest and best one right out the gate. We got the Department of Labor gold medallion for veteran hiring and retention. And we had qualified for this award for the previous 4 or 5 years. Just no one ever looked at the data to apply for it. So you're going to start seeing a lot of real good veteran-based awards coming up here in the very near future. Another note, Jacobs, if you guys watch the stock market at all, you'll know that Jacobs has recently acquired both KeyW and the Buffalo Group. Those are some big names in the defense contracting space, and we've also acquired their veteran networks as well. So all of those are all coming in and really meshing really well. You'd be surprised how a lot of times when certain groups come together, sometimes people butt heads, but it's really meshed seamlessly. So that's been a lot of fun. And then the last thing I'll say about the VetNet group, they're all a bunch of just genuinely good people. You always want to surround yourself with good people, right? The various VetNet groups or chapters will all have different brands or different aspects or different things that they do. The one up here in Pikes Peak, which covers both Colorado Springs and Denver, they meet up once a month to go to baseball games on behalf of VetNet, so you don't have to pay anything for it. They do meetups once a month to talk about just, damn near anything. And overall, I mean, it's a veterans network. So a lot of times during your employment, you're going to be looking for stretch opportunities, or you're going to look for that next opportunity to catapult your career to that next level. We've got this process called E3, and we took it directly from the military for career advancement. You'll sit down with your supervisor and you tell them exactly where you want to take your career, and whether or not you want to be a subject matter expert in something, or maybe you want to be a people manager. Whichever way you want to take your career, you tell that to your supervisor, and then it's your supervisor's job to give you a physical roadmap on exactly what you need to do, how you need to do it, and when it needs to be done by in order for you to obtain your next major promotion or pay raise. And in a lot of those conversations, they will always direct you back to the employee network. How can you get a little bit more exposure within the company? How can you increase your network? Those sorts of things. And the best answer to that is always the employee network. And for all of us, it's a real easy decision to volunteer for VetNet. So again, my name is Bill Crowder. I am the talent acquisition lead for Space Force up here in Colorado Springs. I also have indirect relations to the special operations community based out of Tampa, but with positions worldwide. I'll drop my LinkedIn here in the chat, so please feel free to reach out to me. Do me a huge favor, though. When you hit me up on LinkedIn, say, hey, Bill, I saw you at the HOH meeting or something along those lines, so I know to accept you immediately. Otherwise, I'm going to spend like 5 minutes digging through your entire background, trying to figure out why I should connect with you in the first place. So make that easy on me, and I look forward to seeing all of you very soon.
Thank you so much, Bill, for all the information. VetNet is it's a great organization. Bill is passionate. There's not too many people I ever talk to that are as passionate as Bill is about recruiting veterans, and he does great things. I will also say one of the things that I'm excited about is we are ideally, again, we're doing a lot of new things at Jacobs. We're going to bring on a subcommittee specifically for military spouses into VetNet this year. And ideally, Shelby will be leading that as military spouse herself. So really a great organization that does a lot. The last person I will introduce before we take questions, we have several from the chat, is Larry Everly. Larry, so we talked a lot about our lines of business, and I mentioned Bill is in our CMS business. Larry is in our People and Places Solutions business. So I want to give him a little bit of time to talk, and he has also been one of our most active hires of, as a recruiter perspective of fellows. So Larry, feel free to tell us a little bit about your team.
Hey, let me make some people mad right off the bat. That's okay. Roll Tide. I'm an Alabama fan, so Bill and we go back and forth over this all the time. But yeah, hey, I don't have any slides. I wasn't scheduled to speak or anything, but I never pass up an opportunity to talk to veterans. Oh, come on, there, old Alabama fan. Come on, William Potting. Slow down here, man. Hey, I'm a veteran, so I've got an advantage over the Jason. I like to think of him as Jason Bourne instead of Jason Boone. But I got an advantage over these guys that are trying to do this stuff, and they're not veterans. I'm a veteran, 21 years in the U.S. Army, retired as a Army First Sergeant, E8 for those that don't know Army ranks. So I'm just accustomed, sort of, to being in charge or directing people or mentoring young troops or what have you. But I've been retired 21 years now. And so kind of some of that's sort of worn off. And come on there, Colonel Payne, gig 'em Aggies. Come on now. But anyway, I kind of take it as my own personal charge to help veterans. I don't have to. My job description doesn't require me to. But I just love it. I've always had a passion for helping veterans. So here's what I feel like I'm an advocate for. You. I'm the guy that can dial up a hiring manager and say, listen, let me tell you about this colonel. Yeah, he's an Aggie fan, but he's a veteran. And I can kind of elaborate what it's like to be a veteran because let's face it, the vast majority of our hiring managers are not veterans. So they don't know what it's like to wear that suit that you guys wear and you gals wear. They don't know what it's like. So it takes somebody like me to kind of share that with them, and I can share what the culture is that you've been living in, a values-laden culture that you are in every day of the week. And those are just intangible characteristics that veterans bring to the table. I like to highlight that. I like to spotlight it. And I just take it as a personal challenge to try to convince a hiring manager, hey, you need to take a double look at this particular veteran because she's going to be a great fit. He's going to be a great addition to your team. So aside from a specific opportunity that we could talk about today, if there, and I dropped my LinkedIn profile link in the chat feed here. If there's something I can do for you just to kind of help as you are making a transition out, just to share my personal experiences, maybe where I stumbled, maybe I can help you not to stumble as badly as I did or whatever, then let me be an added resource for you. Reach out to me. It's not BR549, that's kind of old, but it's 256-453-1711. That's my telephone number. You can call me anytime. I answer that phone until 10 p.m. daily. Thanks, Jason.
All right, thanks so much, Larry. So with that, you've met all of our team. I will let you know there's a couple hundred more recruiters on the backside that are not there, but we do want to take some time now for your questions, and you can put them in the chat. You can raise your hand. You can use the raise hand feature. And what I want to do is kick one off as we start, and kind of if you think of your questions. And it's a comment about skills. So I love seeing everybody that talked about project and program manager. And if there's one thing I know is that if anybody served in the military for more than about 5 or 6 years, you've got great experience managing projects. And when we ask you to select your skills on that registration form we talked about, project and program management is one of those. But I'm also going to ask you to, one, select one of the other functional areas. But more importantly, when you sell yourself, I want you to tell me the kind of programs and projects you've managed or want to manage going forward. So I'll let you know that if I get 30 individuals that are all project and program managers, and they don't tell me anything about what kind of programs or projects, it's really hard to find the right manager for you. So if they're logistics projects, if they're aircraft maintenance projects, if they're cyber projects, wherever those are, just as a tip for you when you fill that out, and I'll tell you, when you talk to anybody on your civilian career side, please let them know what kind of programs and projects you manage. And with that, I know Shelby's going to collect some questions, but I love the hand raise feature. So I'm going to call on Nathan. If you want to come off mute and ask your question, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for taking my question.
Absolutely, Nathan. What can we answer for you?
And
Not
good to see you again, Bill, for here in Colorado.
Nathan, it sounds like we have a bad connection. If you want to type it in the chat window, we will absolutely watch for that. We only had a couple words, so we'll watch for that in the chat window. And then Shelby, what other questions have you had come up?
We've had a couple really good ones here.
Yeah, my question's about if you guys look for.
Nathan, we're only hearing every couple words on the audio connection. If you can type it in the chat, we'll make sure we answer it from there. What were the other questions, Shelby?
Okay, so first, do we have opportunities for virtual fellowship?
We do. I'm glad people asked. There is a lot of opportunity for virtual across Jacobs, long-term and on fellowships. I will let you know one of the biggest challenges if you're looking for a role to leverage your clearance, those fellowships that are virtual are going to be more limiting. So occasionally there's an opportunity to leverage your clearance in a virtual environment, but as you can imagine, That clearance in your work often means in a secure facility, so it is going to limit that a little bit. But we will, and in the notes in the location, tell us you're open to virtual. And we also have the remote region. So one of the regions from Hiring Our Heroes is specifically for remote. So we look at those and we promote those as remote opportunities around the country.
Okay, so the next one is there a path in fellowship towards a career in something that a fellow has no background in? Example, if I'm interested in IT, but I have no experience in IT, my experience is in HR or project management, would it be possible to change fields?
You know, I love the question because it's a tough one. And if there's anything I always say, I'm going to give our military members a direct answer. So possible, yes. Difficult, also yes. So it is hard. You know, I'm not shy to anyone. It is very hard to transition significantly across career fields. And in a fellowship, it is the one opportunity that maybe we can, but often we're looking for in only a 12-week period of time with the Hiring Our Heroes Fellowship, what skills can we transition as quickly as possible to full-time? So the best example I have of that is I'll see some great Intel professionals that want to switch over into cyber or IT, and they've been using some of those systems. They have a great clearance. So a lot of times that clearance can be your bridge into that. Or if you have a great clearance and you're interested in a very entry-level IT role, and maybe you want to work in PC support, which is kind of the earliest level, and you've got a security plus, a network plus, an A plus, we can sometimes get you into that area as well. But I want you to know it is difficult. We are generally looking for an area where we can transition the skills that you have.
And then Nathan's question did come through in the chat. And I think to just kind of reiterate one more time here. So his question is, he's looking for specific skill sets in a specific area. Again, can you speak to the alignment of the skill sets and location when they're filling out that initial form?
You know, so I wish I could give every specific, and here's what I'll give for advice, because we do cyber in a lot of locations. We do logistics in several locations. We do environmental engineering in several locations. What I would encourage you to do is when you can check out the Jacobs Career site now, go to the career site, and if Bill or Shelby wants to throw that in the chat, it'll be even easier. But you're going to find a location filter. One of the best things you could do is just put in the location where you want to be. No other keywords, just the location on the location filter, and look at the jobs that are available at that location. That's going to really give you an idea of what's there. I wish I could tell you every skill at every location, but with last I looked, almost 4,000 jobs open on our career site, it's tough to know all those. We have some major areas, you know, so I can give an example of if you want to be a PC technician and you have a clearance, I know I've got opportunities at Scott Air Force Base, in DC, in Colorado, and in Tampa. But beyond that, it's tough. But I encourage you to use our career site, and that's that help us help you. Let us know, hey, I saw this opportunity in this location. So, Shelby, can we take a couple of the questions from the hand raises? I know Gene was first.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
All right. I've got Gene Charles. If you want to go ahead and come off mute and ask your question.
Everyone doing? I have a quick question which ties into the remote opportunities. If you do want to leverage your security clearance, but because you're in a transitioning stage, is there any possibility for skill bridge that is remote with a possible follow-on if picked up in person?
So absolutely. So again, it's going to be the same thing with the remote positions. More of them are going to not be cleared roles. Versus the cleared roles, and that's just a matter of, and it's not us making that rule. When the government says, hey, this person working with this clearance has to be on site, we just have to go by those government rules. But our goal with all of our fellowships, or I should say almost all of our fellowships, is to convert you on directly as a full-time employee into that role. So an exception to that is the fellowship on Shelby and I's team. We're going to bring you in and work on our military recruiting team, but our team is not going to have a full-time role. We're going to look for you to go to one of the other recruiting teams across the company for a recruiting role. But most of the fellowship positions we have, the goal is to convert you directly into the role you're doing as a fellow onto a full-time employment. If that's remote, let's keep you remote. If it's leveraging your clearance, let's continue to leverage that clearance. All right, Jake, I've got your hand up next. Jake, you there to come off mute?
Yep. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. So I'm looking at the little brochure thing that we got sent to PDF. It has IT networks and I'm trying to see what other jobs you would have. So I see software development. Is that include data engineering, software engineering, anything like that?
It does. We really have that one pagers to be as broad as possible. So I'll use that example. So the software category, developers, data engineering, data scientists. It is a variety. If somebody says, "Hey, I'm a full cycle developer," that's in that category. So everything is about the programming and software aspect of technology, included the data that wraps around all of that.
Okay. What type of degree would that fall in line with a technical management degree, like a bachelor's?
Oh, absolutely. So we see software developers have a variety of degrees, and that is certainly an area because software data science is going to be the tool specific. If you want to be a programmer, do you have Python? Do you have JavaScript? If you want to work with data science, do you have R, or do you understand data analytics? Do you have Power BI or Tableau for reporting? So it's a lot about the skill that you have, more so than even the degree.
Okay, outstanding. Thank you so much.
All right, Alondo South, and I hope I have the pronunciation correct.
Yes, yes. Thank you for the presentation, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm interested in the business operation, your side of the business, and I know that's in Dallas Fort Worth, Texas. That's about 2.5 hours for me. My question is two parts. Would it be able to remote out of that area, or remote somewhere else? And then the other part is, how do I do the interest form as far, because I don't have any access, or how do you get to that portion of the process?
Perfect. Great. Man, I love the question. One, because you hit an area that I should have included and I didn't. So that role, that fellowship on Shelby and I's team, that is a fully remote role. I'm 100% remote. Shelby's 100% remote. That role will also be 100% remote. So location completely independent. We'll take anybody from anywhere. And if you're not at Scott Air Force Base or outside Luke Air Force Base, that's even better, because we can cover another area that Shelby and I are not. So it is 100% remote on that. And then what I'd let you know is, when you receive the form, and again, that form is going to come in an email from me inviting you to fill it out, make sure you select the business operations as one of the 3 skills that you're interested in. And those are the individuals we're going to follow up with those individuals. You can include when you write your 1 to 3 sentence skill summary, which you'll see that question written just like that. You can mention that you're interested in military recruiting team. That'll cue us off. But I also want you to be a little bit more broad as well, so you don't only write your description just to that role, so that we can make sure we cover all other opportunities for you as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Those are the hands. Shelby, any other questions in the chat?
Let's see here. We have gotten a couple questions again, just on who the right POC is for a particular location. Again, we're going to align the military skills with the location to be able to get you to the right hiring managers or recruiters based on your interests. So definitely stay tuned for that. Let me scroll through and see if there was anything else we didn't touch on.
And while
I see one other hand from Gene.
Yep, Gene, go ahead.
Last question. Some of the other companies are requiring targeted resumes. I didn't hear anything in that regard. Are you guys looking for targeted resumes at all?
I love the question, and it's in targeted, and another term that's commonly used is tailored resume. And if anybody's been on a Raytheon call, I don't know if they had one. My friend Tony Gilbert, he and I did a lot of military recruiting together, and we both talk about this a lot. When you are applying, when you complete the form for us and you apply to that, I encourage you to use a general or a master resume when you're looking at an overall program. But I want to be very specific on this. When you apply to a specific job, especially when you're completing your fellowship and you're applying to a particular job, you absolutely have to tailor your resume to the job that's there. It's just a critical piece. And I tell people, if you're sending out or shotgunning out 50 resumes in a day, and it's the same resume for 50 different jobs, you're just not going to get the jobs. You have to look at the job description, look at the required skills, and make sure that the bullet points on the job description, the skills list and required skills are accurately reflected on your resume the way we write them. You know, the simple example I use all the time is if a job description says FAR, all cap, make sure you include it that way in your resume. If it says federal acquisition requirements, make sure you spell out federal acquisition requirements. And you might cover it both ways, but tailored resumes are key for a role. On the form that we're going to ask you to complete, I really encourage you to include a master or general resume, not necessarily a federal resume, but one that covers a lot of your skills in that 2 to 4 page range. Anything else in our last couple of minutes, Shelby?
I think the last question was, what does a day in the life of a fellow look like? And my initial reaction to that would be, it depends on which line of business and which unique industry you go into here at Jacobs. But Jason, maybe you could touch a little bit on the fellow that'll be working with us, what the expectations would be for our particular role.
You know, I really like the question, and it's a great way to finish it. So because our fellow and the fellow in other areas are going to be very similar. So a day in the life is going to, and I'll cover a couple days in 1 week is probably the best way to have it. We're going to have you network with individuals within the group, within your organization, within your line of business, within the company. We want a fellow to get to know the organization, because as you explore, the goal is a full-time position, and we want you to know individuals across the organization. You're not going to talk to 55,000, but you're going to talk to a variety of people. You're going to talk to your peers. I know in my first 2 weeks, I talked to Larry and I talked to Bill because they do military recruiting. And you're going to do the same kind of thing. You're going to talk to your peers across the organization to learn the business. You're going to learn the tools. That is a big piece. Whatever team you join, you're going to have to learn how to use Microsoft Teams if you've never used it before, inside and out. You're going to need to know the tools we use internally. So I use a tool called Taleo for applicant tracking. I use a tool called Smashfly for candidate relationship management. And on our team, you're going to use those. And if you're on another team if you're on a team that's doing CAD work, you're going to need to know the CAD software that they use. So wherever those are, you're going to have to learn those skills. If you have an opportunity to be on a fellow and you don't have a certification, like an A+ or Security Plus or Network Plus, you're going to align yourself with individuals on the team that have that certification, so you make sure you're studying up and being ready to pass that certification. And then the last piece I'd say is you're going to be shadowing directly the people that are doing the work that you're ideally converting over to. So that if you are going to be a network engineer, you're going to be working hand in hand with other network engineers on our team, and ideally rotating through a couple of those so that you learn the role, so that you're most ready to succeed when you apply to a new role and transition over. And I said, finally, the very last thing is you're going to get involved in the culture of Jacobs. Ideally, you're going to join VetNet. You're going to get involved in VetNet. And if there's another one of our employee networks, so we have some other networks, just to give you an idea, the Jacobs Women's Network, including allies and advocates. I'm an active member of the Jacobs Women's Network. You could join that. Harambe is for our Black community. Alance for our Latino community. We have a variety. We have PRISM for the LGBTQ plus community. So we encourage you to get involved with an employee network, even as a fellow, and really understand the culture. So when we say we live inclusion, we want you to live inclusion as well. I saw a couple more hands. I know there's some questions. We're also at time. I want to be respectful. Larry, I'll let you close us off. So I see your hand physically up on our team.
Yeah, I don't want to close it out there, man. But let's kind of address a couple of points that were made. One is some discussion about the resume, 2-page, 3-page, 4-page, whatever. Just you put what you need to do in a resume. But most lately, the candidates that I've had for Hiring Our Heroes, and more specifically SkillBridge, I've just encouraged those particular folks to do a cover letter. And in the cover letter, just tell the hiring manager about yourself. Listen, I'm a cannon crewman in the Army, but I really want to be such and such, such and such. If you can kind of use that letter, the cover letter, to kind of as a segue to say, this is who I am. These are the intangible skills that I have. This is my drive in life. This is what I'm interested in doing. Then that can add value to your overall resume. There's a lot of questions were also asked about the security clearance. Don't get wrapped up around the security clearance. You know, you don't have to go from the military right into a Hiring Our Heroes or SkillBridge or a job utilizing your clearance immediately. You got 2 years. As long as you land a job opportunity within 2 years, your clearance is still going to be valid. So take advantage of the opportunities like Hiring Our Heroes, SkillBridge, where you can get your foot in the door and then work it from there. Let it evolve. Back to you, Jason.
Perfect. Thanks so much. We really appreciate it. All the advice and guidance is certainly helpful for our veterans. So we're at time. I know there's more sessions as well. I do want to let everybody know we all put our LinkedIn profiles in the chat box. I'm going to accept all of those invitations to come through. Shelby, thank you so much for guiding everything through. To Larry and Bill for joining and sharing your insight, for the great questions. And lastly, I just want to say I wish all of you success in your fellowship. And most importantly, thank you for your service. I know this is a difficult, trying time. It can be stressful. It can also be exciting. Celebrate it, embrace it. And again, thank you for your service.